afternoon, everybody. On a very nice and warm Sunday afternoon. Allow me to introduce our guests to you guys. So we are joined here by Esther, also known as the African Humanist. We have got Bolelang from our consulate, and Michael, who's also the other admin in our group. And I thought it would be a very good idea today to carry on with our discussion on how religion hijacks morality, and discuss something that's very pervasive in the religious circles, and this is that concept of purity culture. And I would love to hear my guests' take on this item as well. So you guys can thank me later. I read Christian blogs. I don't know why. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. So I found this one blog, which was actually very well written, and it was quite critical of purity culture per se, and it was it's obviously written by a woman, but a lot of these items are so universal in terms of how religion shames us about our sexuality, and it shames us, especially women as well, about their gender roles. So allow me just to read the first two paragraphs to you guys, and there's 7 points, so we can go through them one by one, and I would just love to hear what you guys' take on this is, because like when I messaged you to put this stream together, I said that religion is trying to force this monopoly about morality onto us, and it says that we can't be moral, we can't think for ourselves, we can't come up with rules of how society needs to be without the divine dictator in the sky telling us what to do. Let's go through it quickly. Okay, so it says, purity culture is pervasive across the church. It is most starkly seen in fundamentalist church cultures. Yet even in many progressive Christian communities, there are implicit messages that reinforce this purity culture. So the first one that it mentions here, it says that women are responsible for men's sexual sin. Poor Eve, it was Eve in the garden with the snake and the apple. It all goes back to Eve. So it says, purity culture claims that women's bodies and clothing can cause men to stumble with lust, rather than placing the responsibility for sexual thoughts or actions on the man or the boy who enacts them. Purity culture places the responsibility on the woman or girl being looked at and lusted after. It's almost as if Jesus said, if your eye causes you to sin, go and tell the thing that you're looking at to stop looking that way in front of your eye. And that says the whole thing to me. It's very telling how this is especially a way that that religion hijacks morality, and it's almost like, in my opinion, it takes away our freedom to actually make our own value judgments. As a society, it differs. People in Sweden, for example, are more open to certain things than people in Nairobi, for example. They're different sets of norms and values. And as soon as you travel beyond your country, you realize instantly that society creates morals. Each society has a different set of morals and values that that goes with that society. And I really hate this thing that people have got this ultimate authority. That I don't know how to word it without being mean to to our believing friends, but it's like the desire to live as a slave. Like they have the desire to live as slaves, just to be enslaved by a specific idea and the morality. What are your guys' take on this? Let's start with Esther. Are you there, Esther?
Yes, I'm here. You just said something important, and that is the desire to live like a slave.
Yeah.
Of religion is obedience. Obedience is key. You have to be obedient to this deity, and this deity doesn't need partial obedience. This deity needs your obedience. You need always be subservient. You always, you're just never good enough.
Yeah.
Reach the standard what this deity wants of you. How do you how do you pass? How do you pass such a test? How do you pass such a mark?
Yeah, it's a very unreasonable standard, and it's I find it telling that it always falls on women. Women are the ones that are responsible for this. Sexuality is an expression of two genders, but it's always women's fault. It was Eve in the garden. It was Delilah who tempted Samson. It's like nobody can ever win.
But the holy text says that the man is the head, and the woman is, beneath, and they use it to control women. In my opinion, I've had experiences. When I was married, I was told, his issues were my responsibility. I wasn't praying hard enough. I wasn't doing the right things, what I should be doing. There was never a point where they would say, look, the onus is on you to control your temper, to to put check. It was always, it was my duty to ensure that his behavior was good.
Yeah.
I wasn't praying the right prayers. I wasn't praying hard. I wasn't fasting. I wasn't things. And no. And then the final one, God hates divorce. So even when you're in an abusive marriage, in an abusive relationship, God hates marriage. So basically you cannot escape. And even if you do escape, even if you do find your way out, you cannot remarry, because that's the rule. Once you're married, you come out of the marriage, you have to stay alone. Anyone who marries you commits adultery. It's crazy.
It's very strange that the level of control that it has on people's lives and sexuality. Like you just said, Esther, it's I never get it. It's like I ask myself, why would people willingly subject to these things? But it's such a part of our culture, and especially these gender roles that we have. They're especially prevalent in African cultures as well, where where there's a very strong focus on marriage and familial relationships. So. Sorry, Bolelang, you just joined us in the middle of a of a sentence there. So we basically just talking about our women are deemed as the source for men's sexual sin, where the responsibility does not lie on both parties. Like it's all focused on the woman, and it probably comes from that rib woman in the garden with the snake and the apple, and it's crazy, so
yes, that song, it's all like this because of a woman. Who was that? Was it the Blue Notes? around Melbourne and the Blue Notes. And I don't think they were just singing it from nowhere. It is the religious background that they have because they saw it in Genesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I mean, if you look at, I think it's something that's unique to all the Abrahamic religions. I mean, we speak from a Christian background, and Islam, they take it to the next level. I mean, they don't play. They don't play with purity culture. Those guys. I mean, I've heard like horror stories of how. Besides the obvious, what do they call them? Where they actually, there are these countries in North Africa, I believe, where they even stitch women up, with these. I don't know if you've heard of that, Esther. Where women are actually stitched up, only to be, where the husband has has to break the stitches or something on the wedding evening, like.
Oh my goodness! No, I haven't heard about this stitching up, but I mean, talk about genital mutilation, right?
Yeah, especially of girls.
Yeah, the whole idea is to, to keep the girl in such a way that she would not cheat. She shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Sexual desires, so they take off the bit that gives pleasure, right? So that her pleasure, she doesn't have the need. Now, there's some cultures in I'm half Nigerian. There's some cultures in Nigeria that they will do this genital mutilation when the child is much older.
Right.
When people do circumcision and mutilation, they do it when the child is quite young, so that they don't remember the pain, they don't, suffer too much. But there's some cultures, they wait until the girl is just hitting puberty, right?
It's traumatic.
And then they would lure. Yeah, they lure the girl, pretend that she's going to an auntie or something. And then when she gets there, they, before you know it, the aunties just grab her left, right, Why they wait for her to get older is so that she remembers the pain. And they will tell her while they're doing it, they will say to her, we're doing this so that you will have a good marriage and you can stay faithful to your husband. The idea is if she decides to go out and cheat on her husband, she will bring shame and disgrace to the family. And so when she remembers the pain she went through during the process of cutting her up, she would, not cheat. She would not go out there. And I know people who this has been done to, and a lady friend of mine, she said she has no sexual desire, none at all. It's crazy.
What stands out though in what you said is that it's the woman who actually enforce it upon the other woman. They've been sold the lie that they actually perpetrated. They become the jailers. It's astounding. It's really astounding and horrifying.
And then it's a mix. It's a mixture of religion and culture. When religion and culture mix together, in many cases it becomes really, really harmful. And really, because you can explain the religion out of the equation. You can say, I'm not Christian, I'm Muslim. But when it's a culture thing and you've got to live in that culture, you've got to you depend on people, your family, and all. For a lot of people, they go through
I think
so much. Women in particular, it's
If we look at the hierarchy of where religion comes from, religion never came out of nowhere. It comes out of an existing culture. In fact, it's a subculture. And our culture, it's heavily influenced by patriarchy. So whatever you find in religion has been advised by that. And I personally don't look at religion and culture as two separate things. I take religion to be an institution that has taken culture at a certain time, frozen those rules, and made them an institution that can be exported easily to other cultures so that they can infiltrate those cultures.
Very
So
convenient.
it's a subculture that can just be pushed around and like a virus attack other cultures and influence them.
What you've actually said now is true, because the way it operates is very, very like a virus, actually. And it evolves. Religions tend to evolve like a virus, and you've hit a very strong point there, where religion, when it enters into a new culture, takes on elements of that culture, and like a virus that adapts to its environment, they will adapt in what pre-existing conditions really. And they tend to seem to distill the worst of what exists. It's always very confusing for the people in charge.
Yeah.
And this you were talking about sexuality, Dean. Just before I came on, I was looking at something on Instagram. This young lady, beautiful lady, was interviewed, and this young man was asking her, are you single? She goes, yeah, I'm single. Would you like a boyfriend, something of that sort? And then she answered, I'm not into guys. That's what she said. I'm not into guys.
Yeah.
The look on his face, he looked at her like in disbelief, and the people around him said, that's not normal, right?
Yeah.
That's not normal. So this idea that it's man, woman, and that's it. There's no God made Adam and Eve, not Steve and Steve and Rachel and Rachel, that kind of thing, So that's another thing, sexuality and culture. I was talking to somebody about, the cross-dressers, cross-dressers. I was in this group, and in this group, lots of religious people are in that group, and they didn't know at the time that I was. So this subject of this trans person came up. The trans and the cross-dresser, the subject came up, and the things I was hearing, I was really I was mortified just hearing some of the conversations, And this gentleman, I said, this is not fair. How can you talk about people, calling them dogs? Yeah, that's what they were calling them, that they're dogs. So how can you call a human a dog because they're going through transition, or they're in the wrong gender, and they're changing to he says, oh, our Bible does not permit it. I said, look, you live in the you live in the United States of America. Would you say that openly? Would you verbalize that openly? He said no. He said, oh, but don't forget, our culture says we mustn't. I left the group after that because the hate was too much. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah, it was very strange. This ties into the next to the next point that they listed over here, where there is this this constant shame around our bodies, and I don't get it. I don't know why. It is inherent in every religion that you need to be ashamed of your body. They blame women's bodies for lust. They claim that women need to be covered up for the sake of, not tempting men. And, all of this leads to shame. Rather than celebrating the many wonderful different things about our physical shapes, women and girls are encouraged to see their bodies only as a temptation, a source of temptation for men. And I cannot understand where this comes from. I mean, especially if we look at African culture per se, like we live in a continent that's hot. It's a hot continent, and all the Europeans come, and all of a sudden everybody has to be dressed head to toe. I don't get it. I don't get it. Why do they have this? It's almost like a refulgence towards anything that is not like tied up to the neck, arms over here. It's crazy.
I would tell you why. I will tell you why. It's because your body is the temple of God. That's why.
But there's other sinister reasons there.
Yes.
Because in a culture where being nude is natural, sex doesn't sell.
Yeah.
Try selling nude pictures in such a culture.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised. It's like somebody picking up stones and trying to sell them stones. What's the big issue here?
It'll be like trying to sell ice cream to Eskimos.
Yes.
You hit a really good point, because if you look at the statistics of the pornographic sites, they put out statistics, and you'll find that the craziest things that you've ever heard of come from the most restricted societies. People who have got lots of freedoms. Sometimes you can read that list and I think, what's on these people's minds? Are they crazy? The things that they're into. And it makes you very unhealthy, really, when your mind gets so restricted. There's so many question marks, then become perversities. And this really came home to me because right behind me here is a beach. I've just come from the beach. That's why I'm dressed like this. And down on this beach, even back in the 70s, women were going topless on the beach, and then the police came rushing in, and it was all stopped. And I had a friend come down from Johannesburg, and he couldn't even walk down to the water because they were. And as a 12-year-old boy, I didn't even notice, and he got himself into such a tiz, but it was just normal, and it was exactly what you said. Now you're trying to sell stones to people. For me, it was just everything was natural, normal, and there were no strange impulses. In fact, I don't understand these strange impulses.
I think
so. It explains. I say it explains the culture of a sexual violation that is taking place in places like the Catholic Church, because of that artificial clothing yourself, covering everything, and telling people how to behave sexually. You actually pent up their sexual desires, and it becomes abnormal. And that is why you see this pedophile type of behavior, and you get a lot of immoral acts done by Christians themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, when you look at immorality, you'd find that people that commit sex before marriage more than any other group of people is the religious people, because it's yummy for them. It's like the forbidden fruit.
I was going to say that. Yes,
for me, it's just a noble act. For them, it's when you get that opportunity, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this whole concept of religion creates the disease and then it tries to sell you the cure. It's crazy.
Well, So in the words of Christopher Hitchens, he said you can tell the difference between the Catholics and the one in America, those evangelicals. You know which one's which by the gender of child that they abuse. And there's a lot of truth to that. And the reason that they're always picking on the weak person is because they so restricted themselves. They can't. They have to hide it, and it just comes out. They're visited on the weak.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
On that note, this is why these kinds of conversations are extremely important. It's like, especially in our South African and African culture, it's a taboo subject. It's a completely taboo subject to talk to elders or parents or any kind of family member about these things. It's very rare and very strange circumstances where you'll find people openly discussing sexuality in an African context. I don't know if it's just me, or if you guys agree with this sentiment.
I do. I completely agree. I think it's time we start having these conversations. It's time we start breaking these barriers. Without these conversations, these things that we read in the news, they will carry on. We need to start normalizing people's sexuality. We need to start showing people that people are diverse. People are diverse. There's this hard and fast rule of woman, man, and that's it. And you only come together for reproduction. That's the only time you should have any sexual pleasure. We need to start promoting and realizing, and we need to get this word out there. Sexuality, it's normal. It's how you feel about your body. It's normal. There's and if how you feel about your body, you feel this is how you are feeling, this is how you wake up in the morning, you could look at yourself in the mirror, you're a man, but on the inside you feel like a woman, and you believe that there is a God. Tell that God, ask God, why did you create me this way then? Put it back on your God. Put it back on him, because he's created you that way.
That's if he can reply, because
he does. Usually
he has never said a thing.
He? Never.
This ties in quite nicely with the another point on this list here, where it only purity culture creates this idea within our minds that we shouldn't have sexual desire or sexual fulfillment. Like women are just considered the oven that the bread is baked in. Like the idea that we enjoy these kind of relations and interpersonal interactions with one another is something that it shuns. The article I read here goes along these lines. It says purity culture sometimes implicitly and sometimes explicitly states that the reason men's sexuality is women's responsibility is that women's lady brains are so different that they don't really have a sexuality and they don't want to have sex. Unlike men, apparently, who think about sex every 3 seconds, women are completely non-sexual and they're considered as non-sexual beings. But it is just science, it's just science. We have all been made with a sex drive, with sexual desire. And, you cannot leave this up only to women to take responsibility for this. But now, when you come back to the Christian aspect of it, most of the Christians who buy into this view, they also contradict it with the view that women are easily deceived. So they say women, the men should be in charge, but those are the same men who, according to this, aren't even in charge of the of the sexuality. It's a very strange contradiction.
Can I, in a way, I would agree that in most cases, the women are not as sexual as men in most cases. But also, could it be that it's conditioning? Could it be that it is the environment? When you've told the woman you are not allowed to express your sexuality, you are not allowed to be the first one to express, sex. The man, you're not the one to make the advancement. The man comes to you. The man does the searching, the looking. When you have conditioned the woman to be in that environment, how can she express sexual desire? How can she, because then her sexual desire is seen as promiscuity. It's seen as, oh, you're not raised right. You're not raised from the right home. You're not, it's the, I think it's conditioning. That's what makes women less able to express their sexual desires, I think.
But Esther, it doesn't mean that they are not sexual. It means they do have the feelings, but they are not as free to express them that like men would do. But they would be aroused when the body feel aroused. They would just keep it a secret.
Yeah. No.
It represses,
Just but even the word purity culture is just such a loaded word. It's I kind of struggle with the word purity culture. What is impure about the opposite of it? About what a person, look, there's disease. We understand that, and there's also some social ills if a person is going to be extremely promiscuous, I suppose. But then again, it's their own business. It's absolutely their own business. So I have a lot of actually issues with the word purity culture right out the gate. Also, it's in our language. We talk about losing our virginity. What's there to lose? I didn't lose the damn thing. I felt like I gained quite a lot, really. It was a very...
You gain experience.
Yes, it was a very unpleasant
double standard. Don't you guys see the double standard? Women lose their virginity, and men, when it comes to men, they're considered these conquesting warriors.
What do the men lose?
Go and plunder and plow the fields,
But it's a lot of within the home. This is done where there's a double standard for the males and the females, and I was extremely fortunate in my household where my brother and myself and my sister were treated absolutely equally. My father. I'm going to just say what my dad said to me one day because it was fairly shocking. And he just said to me, I didn't have a lot of sexual talks in our house. Everything was just, I don't know, it was very relaxed. My dad said to me, Mike, one day, how am I going to say this on YouTube? But he said to me, Mike, would you go to a public toilet and where there's urine and there's pubic hair lying around, and would you wipe your bits there on that white porcelain? I said, never, Dad. There's no way I would do that. He said, well, screw around, my boy, and that's what you get. And that was really the only purity culture I ever got. That was it was just there are there's diseases that go with it. Be careful, and that was all I got. And my sister was treated in a very relaxed way. She could come to my parents and talk about anything, as our kids can come to us and talk to us, completely open. There's no judgment.
And talking about this purity culture, I read an article when I was deconverting from Christianity about the Mormons. This is a culture. This is something what is prevalent in the Mormon. I'm not sure. It might be other cultures as well, because they're trying to preserve the purity. They have sex through other means, right? I'm not sure if I can be verbal about this, but instead of going through the rite passage, right? They go through the other passages
Right.
to preserve the purity,
virginity,
virginity of the right passage. If you know what I mean, I think I'm trying to help you.
I've even heard stories where there's this term called soaking, where where there's like apparently God is like a cat. He only sees motion. So if there's no motion, then God doesn't see it. So there's people that will they will have just this intimate moment where you understand what they mean by soaking. Something is just soaked.
So there's penetration, but there's no movement.
Yeah, there's no movement. So it's not like you're dunking a rusk. You're just soaking the rusk.
People are creative.
Yeah, people are creative.
And it's not a sin if it's done like that, or what did they say?
That's the idea. It's not considered sinful because it's the sexual act. That's the
thing. That's the thing with us humans. We're very creative. When you tell people, "Thou shalt not do this," the tendency is
they're going to find a loophole,
And then you say to them, "Thou shalt not do this," and then the God has created them with these desires. And when these desires come on, they can be really strong, and they will find other means. They would find alternatives. And that's the thing. It's in finding these alternatives and doing things what they're not supposed to be doing. That's when diseases come about. That's when, things that we shouldn't even, when people now start going through back passages and engaging with, things they're not supposed to. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that, allow people to be free. Allow people to. I believe in modesty. Even though I'm an atheist, I still believe in modesty. I still believe in doing things
it makes
properly,
sense. But I'm thinking of soaking. To me, there's something exciting about it more than the movement. It feels like it's electrifying after some time being soaked in there. There's going to be firecrackers.
That's tantric, isn't it, really? Isn't that quite
in a certain sense,
Let's be honest, we're very, very unhealthy. In all of our traditional cultures, including religion, most of us are pretty unhealthy, mentally unhealthy about it. There's all kinds of mental. We've created, as Hitch would say, mind-forged manacles. We've locked ourselves into these cages of things we may not do. But that said, that's where all the kinkier stuff comes from too, isn't it? Because it's all going on in the head. All the things you're not allowed to do, as you said earlier, Bolalang, is all the things you're not allowed to do. They're really the most exciting. And unfortunately, I'm not allowed to do, so it's not that exciting for me.
Pornhub recently did a survey where the most traffic is coming from.
The Bible Belt.
Bible Belt in the Middle East.
Places.
Yeah, and the thing is that it wasn't those oppressed cultures. It's not vanilla stuff that they're searching for. It's like it's like two girls, one donkey. And that kind of. That's the kind of thing that the repression brings up in people, And
exactly.
I always use this analogy, when I was living in my.
Do they have that on Pornhub?
I don't know.
Oh.
So, when I was living in my parents' house, they were extremely restrictive about certain things, So the first thing I did when I left my parents' houses, I just went crazy, you know, like, and that's the nature of this kind of restriction, you know, like religion places these unrealistic restrictions on us, you know, to deny our nature. You know, we've got a human nature that wants to express itself in so many different ways, you know, and it restricts us. So the second that there is an opportunity to break free of those restrictions, and people go crazy, you know, it's like, that's why you'll see, you know, when people finish high school, they go on these binges, you know, like they drink themselves stupid for like a whole month, you know, just because they've been prevented or prohibited from doing it, you know. And this is the kind of mentality that this purity culture enforces. This also ties in quite nicely with, sorry, I was just going to, we've talked about virginity as well earlier, you know, and it's this article where, you know, was very specific about this, where it says that our virginity is the only thing of value, or you know, that is worth anything about people. And it says, for women and girls who are not married yet, purity culture insists that their value is based on their virginity. They are taught that having sex makes them like a chewed up piece of paper, or a chewed up piece of gum, or a jar that loads of people spit into, and then teaching us of that inherent value that we have as human beings. That's just completely suspended, you know. The only thing that matters, and this is the message that is especially ingrained into young women, is that you will become worthless, you know, and useless if you have sex. You know, and that's a kind of psychological damage. You know, it's abuse. It's abusive to train people into that mindset. And what happens is, it follows you through your adulthood. You know, like whenever you think of sexuality and intimacy, you know, immediately this primal part of your brain that you learned, you know, since it's dirty, you know, or something like that.
Which is a lie.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm imagining if I was given an option to have a partner who's a virgin and who's not a virgin, I would go for experience.
Yeah.
Really. I don't want to start from the bottom. Well,
that goes to show that you're not a selfish person. Well, maybe selfish because, of course, you want your own desires met too. But for a lot of men, they would rather go with the
a virgin.
The virgin.
But would they?
Yeah.
I think it's a culture thing. I think it's a mind thing. For some people, they think, oh, I'm the first one there, and you know, there's more.
That's ego.
It's more. You know, it's like a goal that I need to achieve. I need to. I don't know. It's just so much importance is placed on virginity, and I don't understand.
But it's useless, because how long is that person going to take before being free with me? I don't want to engage in sex in a very confined, restrictive way. I would like free expression. So imagine if I get a person that has not had sex, and maybe we are 30.
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be difficult. We are going to struggle for 5 years or so.
Exactly. It's like, you know, and especially, you know, when it comes to the Middle Eastern religions, you know, like they promise, they've got this idea of they call them huri, which are these virgins that are waiting for men in heaven, you know, like, so, I mean, you know, I asked myself, who wants 70 virgins? You know, like, give me 70 experience. You know, like if you're talking about 70 experienced sexual partners, that's I'm in with that. You know, but you know, who wants to?
two fire-breathing whores would be much better.
But then this issue of virginity. I mean, it's easy for you to tell if a girl is, not a virgin. But how do you test the men? How do you?
It's a double standard.
And also, like you were saying, that double standard.
But is it even important to test people for that?
You shouldn't even be doing it.
It's a useless activity.
You shouldn't be doing it.
But isn't there's some tradition, when I was much younger, we went to Swaziland once where there's this reed dance that they do for the king, where all the young girls go, and apparently there's also some virginity test that the older women do, and it's it's so unscientific. What they do is they basically just fondle these girls. And then if the girls react in a certain way, they must react shocked, like they've never been touched by anybody there. If they don't react like that, then they are deemed that they're not virgins anymore. It's something.
There's some cultures, they put a white sheet on the on the bed on the day of marriage, and the mother-in-law and mother, they're all waiting outside. For the event to be done.
Then a clever couple smuggles in chicken blood because they know that their marriage and family is going to determine their relationship. So they don't want to take chances. Just a little bit, a bag of chicken blood, and
there's a lot of good to be said for traditional cultures of all kinds, and there's a lot of bad to be said about modern cultures. But I think this is one area of intrusion into one's personal life that I'm glad modern culture has pushed back on. Where psychology and medicine play a much stronger role than all of these fears and insanity. I've only ever grown up in a very, very permissive society, and I don't have those urges to look up donkeys and whatever else, and I just don't get it. And maybe I'm missing out on something. Maybe it would be very exciting.
Oh, no, you're not missing out on anything. You're not missing out on anything.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. That it's for me, the whole issue is just so relaxed. And we've got 2 daughters, who are out of their teens now. And if they want to talk to us about something, they just talk to us about it, and we give the best opinion we can, and we'll find the answer together. And that's it. It's simple. Their lives are good and happy, and onward we go. If they want to do something, they must do it. And if they don't want to do something and it's forced upon them, then I'm going to get involved at that point in time. And things are not going to go well.
Right. I also think it's very important that we just need to stress that we are critical of ideas. We're not critical of people. People have got their own rich cultural heritage, and sometimes these ideas inform their behavior. We are never critical of people. It's the reason for the ideas that we criticize. So we must just
because they are suppressive.
Yes, exactly.
And they don't give rise to a good culture. We're talking about Michael's children consulting parents. Our children now, they consult us. We do talk about sexual issues, and they are not active as we were. We started much more earlier, but for the very same reason that we could not ask about these things, we ask our friends. Esther is acting surprised. I find today's children studying sexual activity later. Where they talk about it at school because they tell parents about it. My parents never knew about my sexual activities because it was taboo.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you.
I thought it shocked you.
No,
so it's healthy to discuss sexual matters.
Why I had my face like that is when my, when he found the confidence to tell me about this girl that he'd been seeing, I, in my head, just said, oh boy, you started way later than I did. You know what I mean? We started really young, and you have to just don't say anything. And my thing is, as much as we want to promote people being free and people expressing their sexuality, we also need to or make sure you're talking about safe sexual practices, because as much as we AIDS is no longer a taboo subject, because we've got to the point now where having HIV is not a death sentence anymore, but it's still out there. It's there's
and there are many other
stuff.
famous viruses.
Exactly.
So it's not lonely.
Exactly. So, as much as on the one hand we promote, you want to tell people, just express yourself, enjoy the moment, enjoy your life, enjoy what you need to. But on the other hand, safe sexual practices, and that's why for me, sex education, very important. It's something that I support. I live in the United Kingdom, and the way they do things here, it's for a lot of African parents, when you come over here, a lot of African parents, they like in the schools now, in primary schools, they started the curriculum says you must teach about it's okay for two men to love each other. It's okay for two women to love each other. It's okay for man and woman, And the Muslims, they were in uproar. The Muslims, in Birmingham, there was, the Muslims were protesting in with placards, and it was a big thing. They didn't want their children being taught these things. It became a real problem.
And here's a problem. If you don't tell children about that type of a behavior that may arise in them, when it happens and they have nobody to talk about about, they might even commit suicide and things like that. In fact, here's an interesting thing. Most children that turned out to become gay and lesbians when they grew up, I noticed way back when they were young that they are going to turn out that way. So how can it be unnatural if I've noticed so many and I was so right with my prediction?
Yeah.
An issue of gender, it's not an issue of sexuality, biological sex. It's something different.
Yeah. It's I find these kind of discussions fascinating, and it's it's really whenever you discuss this kind of topic amongst the atheist community, you will find people with fresh ideas and new ideas that are open to different ideas. But when you approach a religious community with these kind of ideas, it's heresy. They like grasping at their heads, like what is the
because they will say Galatians chapter 5 verse what says this and this, and you remember what Paul said to Timothy then, and what?
Yeah,
and those
Paul
guys
said,
are not with us today.
Paul said it's easier to serve God as a single person. It's easier to do the will of the master when you're on your own without any sexual partner, or but if you must, you go ahead and do it. But the ideal situation, if you were to have the direct contact, you and God, is to be single and what's the word I'm trying to find?
Celibate.
Celibacy.
That's the one. Celibate.
That's Paul's business. It has nothing to do with me.
But and then on that note, you've got these incels, involuntary celibate. In other words, you're just so socially inept that you that you can't get it off with anybody, and these become dangerous characters. These are the guys in America shooting everybody up, the incel, because you've got a lot of chemistry going on inside of here that's not getting out, and yeah.
But imagine if the father was free to discuss sexual matters with those boys as they grow, and he shared his experience with women. That boy would not be inept. He would have some skill.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a
this
tragedy.
is the thing. I firmly believe, right, that there is a lid for every single pot. You must just go and look and find it. Sometimes you can even cover a pot with a plate. You can put a plate on top.
Yeah, but what if this pot has lid phobia?
Another thing. I was listening to somebody who was talking on YouTube. He was saying, "Oh, the atheists, they promote sexual promiscuity. They think it's okay to have sex with anybody, and they promote pedophilia because the atheists have no problem with anyone sleeping with anyone." And that really bothered me, because as much as you want to promote sexual freedom and sexual enjoyment, there should be boundaries. There should be a cutoff point. There should be, for me, children are a no-no. Children are a no-go area.
Can I put that in legal terms? It's got to do with contract. To have sex with somebody, it's a contract between two people. It's an agreement, and you've got to have capacity to agree. So an adult can't have sex with a child, because a child isn't in a position to do a contract in the real world with anything. You also can't have sex with an animal for the same reason, or a dead body for the same reason, because they don't have the capacity to contract.
It's
and
consent.
That's what it comes down to.
Consent.
In fact, my father said to me, to make me understand it better, he said there are heavy emotions that are involved in this act. He did not hide it. He said it's very exciting, but there are heavy emotions involved, and after getting involved in it, those emotions are going to trouble you. As a young person, you'll find it difficult to handle them. So wait until those emotions you are able to handle them. You are matured enough to handle such emotions.
Sure.
Didn't talk about consent, and you see that word. That's one word that I think we need to promote. It doesn't get the promotion that it needs, because when people, especially in the religious settings, they promote purity culture. Oh, wait until you're married. Wait until you're married, right? And they don't tell this young couple, they drum, oh, you've got to wait. Then after they've waited, then the wedding day comes, and these two are married. That's it. You're just left on your own, to your own devices, and in some cultures, African cultures, where bride price is paid, right? The man has paid this bride price. In some cases, the man feels like, now you are my property because I have paid your
which is very painful.
And so you find that a lot of people, they think that because I paid your bride price, I'm talking from experience myself, because I paid your bride price, I have the right to have sex anytime and every time I want it, whether you're ready or not, whether you give consent or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
and it becomes rape.
Ah,
Yeah.
there you go.
This culture of a dowry, is especially in our South African culture. There is this concept of a dowry, or a lobola, they call it, that that is usually paid to the family of the bride. And it's a transaction. It's almost like you are buying.
It's not only South Africa. It's all the African culture that that speak the Bantu languages.
Right.
It's in a group of people.
Right. Yeah, so it becomes a transaction, like women are property, and they passed around as currency, along
In
with
fact, it's due to go.
yeah, five
It should be able. We should be able to discuss it in open forum.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's the problem now. The women are proud of it now.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
right.
So we certainly
because there's a
jailers.
belief that if it was not taken out for you, you don't have value.
Right.
Jeez, that's heavy.
It's like an issue of surname. Somebody comes with their surname, and there are women who are proud to change their surname to the husband's surname.
I think
as if it makes them a better person. Whereas those things, they are oppressive.
This subject of bride price and dowry, I think it's a subject. It's a whole topic in itself. Because it's just so much. I personally the idea of that transaction that goes on due to my own experience. It's like a price is put on your head, and the man feels the need to fulfill, and then afterwards you become you become his thing, you become his plaything.
But Esther, you are an African. You are an African. You are speaking against your tradition. That's the reason that usually you will get. You see these feminists. And it's difficult to discuss it.
It's true,
because I love that topic with a passion.
Yeah.
But I find that it's easier to say to people, I don't believe there's God, than say to them, I don't think dowry is cool.
That's true.
And that's where religion and culture, when they come together, you can easily remove, for a lot of people, you can easily remove the religious aspect, but the culture, that's harder.
It's true. Yeah.
Well, culture's got the word cult in it. But
and it doesn't need one to think. It's kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking, but we're really talking about a rape in marriage, and I think it was very recently. I think only 1996 was rape in marriage recognized in a place like Germany. So there was no the whole idea was you can't steal your own wallet, and that's just insane.
What's a wallet?
You can't rape your wife.
Huh?
No. What's a wallet?
Well, yeah,
they take another person and they reduce that person to property.
Exactly. Where you're not seeing another person's has a person's got their own emotions and their own needs, etc. And that's a tragedy. It's really quite hard for me to comprehend. But it's culture. Cultures are strange things.
Because how do you measure when the relationship is dead if there's no consent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because lack of consent helps you to know when this horse is dead now. So, okay. this is not functional.
It's true.
It's not healthy to be together. But if there's a law that says you cannot say no, how are you going to assess that?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. You nailed it.
The Bible says that the man's body belongs to the woman's body belongs to the man. So even in the
Remember,
Bible, it still promotes this idea that your body is the property of the other person.
now
You
I have
have
no interest in owning
you,
anybody's body.
Yeah.
you have no it's not your right, it's the other person who has the right over your body. I don't know, and that's what some people use that as
No.
the excuse and the
Uh,
reason to take advantage of their wife or their mate.
That's the thing, it's like when you find a country where there's something wrong with the laws, people will find a way to abuse it, and this system is the same as this religious system. There's something wrong with the system, so people find a way to exploit it,
loopholes.
It's loophole, yeah.
It's not crime. I'm just exploiting the loopholes. If the loophole
It's called
So-
tap
says I should.
dancing, tap
So
dancing
this
around
is this is a question. How pure is the purity culture? How pure is it?
Well,
There's
what is
nothing
pure to
called-
start with?
And
There's nothing pure.
What's pure about it?
Yeah,
Nothing.
what is pure?
obsession. It's I don't even
Perception.
want to use the word culture, because it's an obsession. It's an obsession with virginity, and it's an obsession with control. They want to control women, and this is a way that they, this is a tool to do that. There's no
it's
other
more
way
than
of
that,
saying
Dean.
it. Like they can.
But there's more to it than that, Dean, because they're also homophobic. So it's not just an obsession with women; it's an obsession with sexuality, so yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
But that
my
obsession
thing
you
is,
create it by making rules against sexuality.
Yeah.
Esther, ask what is pure about purity culture. If you check how pure something is, you put it under test, and if there's some impurities that still comes out of it, that is not pure. We have just discussed a lot of things that happen under that culture. And there's a lot of impure things that hurt people, that even tear down families. So it's not pure. It's just
Very good
wedding.
point.
I think
Yeah.
for me, when I was going through the process of deconverting from Christianity, one of the things that I thought about was this issue of God is watching you 24 hours. He's like the fly on the wall. So anything you're doing, he knows, he sees,
He's the mosquito in your ear.
He's there. He's there when you're engaged in that passionate, illicit act, and then, and for me, I started asking the question, why is God? People do in their pride. Why is God invested in the kind of sex people are engaged in? There are things that
He likes to watch.
There are things. There are things that he could be occupying his time with. Children in the hospital, they're dying from cancer. There's this Omicron, the new Omicron variant come out, but no, he would rather.
It's not exciting.
He would rather be watching what kind of sex you're having.
Right, I can see that everybody has got very strong opinions about this, but let's continue through these lists. There's only 3 more to go, right? So it also teaches the one thing about purity culture and its focus on women as well is, like I said earlier, it considers women as the oven that the bread is baked in. Like that women don't enjoy sex as much as men. These are myths that religion teaches us. So the paragraph here reads, it says, Christians especially believe that God created women with an organ that has no other purpose than to provide orgasms. Across the wider population, 50% of women are totally clueless about their anatomy. They cannot accurately even label the parts of their anatomy. So it's a much wider issue. But for Christian women, the purity culture's silence and discouragement of women understanding their own bodies leads to a situation where they don't see the sexual act as something that they have the right to enjoy as much as men do. And I wonder what you guys' opinion on this is.
But even with us, they got into our organs. They told us not to touch it. So they've been policing all the organs. If it's a sexual organ, they do have an interest in it.
Exactly.
Something like masturbating, teenagers will masturbate.
Yeah, but they make you
they
ashamed.
will be made to feel guilty about it.
Shame and guilt.
Yeah, checking the hair, whether the hair does really come out of hands.
On that note, when I found out how dangerous it was to do that, I just outsourced, rather. Let somebody else take it.
But that's a myth, it's a myth that women don't enjoy sex as much as men. Women are just, in my opinion, women are more oppressed. They're more oppressed and programmed to, to not express their sexuality, and that's why there is this
conditioning.
There's this myth that women don't enjoy sex. And the first time that you meet a woman that is liberated from these shackles, that enjoys her sexuality, that expresses her sexuality, you realize how, just how restrictive and how suffocating this kind of a mindset is, especially to women, because if we don't express ourselves as sexual beings in the context of our lives, it's a very important aspect of your life and your identity is your sexual expression. And when women are denied this aspect, look, here I am as a man talking on behalf of women. let's
I can speak. I mean, I think if you think that women are unable to express desires, give them the right. Give them the right environment, the right person or persons, whatever, just, and see a different person, see a different character. In most cases, women are taught that you can't be the first one to express desire. You can't, but if you let the woman know that it's okay to express, it's okay to seek out your own sexual pleasure, I think you will find a completely different woman.
Yes. And if one partner does not satisfy or fulfill your needs, find another one, change another one. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm sorry, we're not compatible sexually, let's find other people to fulfill ourselves.
But if you do it after marriage, already you have wasted money on the ceremony, and it's too late to change. That is why the whole thing doesn't make sense for me. You can't test drive the car after you have purchased it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where having these conversations, communication in relationships, very important. The whole purity culture thing, teaches that the men are superior, right? And the women, it's the man's decision over the woman. In such an environment, how do you create oneness? How do you create equality if I don't feel equal to you? How can I express my emotions?
There's no relationship.
Exactly. And then the communication is stunted, and if you cannot express to your mate, I want to try something completely different sexually than what we've been doing, should we try this, should we try that, and should we,
and you get the response from the insecure male partner. Where did you learn about that?
Exactly. Or in some cases, this is from someone I particularly know. She was, she wanted to try different things, right? And she told the husband, let's try. And the husband agreed. Okay, And then all of a sudden he says, I was praying and God said I should tell you we mustn't try anything because God will be unhappy with us. So
what God liked missionary position only, or what?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's when the infidelity begins, right? Because if you can't get it at home, you go somewhere else.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and the thing is, they, especially with this whole purity culture concept, it teaches women that if they have sex outside of the confines of a monogamous marriage, that everything that can go wrong with their lives will go wrong with their lives. They will. It will destroy them as people. It will destroy their relationships. They won't have any kind of self-worth. It teaches women that their lives will be hopeless if they engage in any kind of sexual activity outside of the context of marriage. And it's just another way to control women. The funny thing is, if you look at this in reverse, what happens is that someone way back then in the desert recognized like, hey, wait a minute, like this women seem to be tempting the men. So instead of actually like addressing the men and saying, look here, guys, we need to change something here, they actually went to the source and they tried to change the source of the problem, which is the wrong way to go about it. In my opinion, the problem needs to be solved from the other end.
No,
we
but
need to educate our boys.
we
need to educate our men to have a reverence and a respect for sexuality, for women.
But I don't think it comes from one side, Dean.
Yeah. No, obviously, yeah.
The women have looked at you passing around and said, yummy. When they were talking together, you never heard them.
Yeah.
They do desire men and they do see men that are good looking. We do tempt women ourselves also in flirting and things like that. There's no one group that is controlling this thing. There's only a culture that is pretending that certain ones are in control and others should follow suit.
Yeah.
It comes down
And
to
the sooner we break that, the better.
Yeah.
It comes down to the question of who owns who, and that's just where it begins and where it ends.
Yeah.
And it's once you start to recognize that there is no ownership, everything else falls into place. You don't need any. And that's how I grew up. I grew up with no perception that my father owned my mother, or the other way around, or I had any. We were independent people and brought up that way, and I've never had that issue. but I have seen it.
So your father was not a head?
Was not a
head?
The head of the household.
Oh no! But he would not accept that. My father was a very proud, strong man, but he was extremely proud that his entire life my mother earned more than him. He never earned more than her because she was an executive, and he was very proud of that. And I was brought up in that way. Yeah. So no.
I've met a gentleman. He's an atheist, but also a misogynist. Yeah. He does not believe in equal pay. Does not believe that. Oh God, he hates feminists. He has a strong hatred for feminists. Yeah. He believes that the man is up there and the women, and then he always would make a point and say, if women were equal to men, why don't the women go in the army? Why don't the women do the jobs that men do? He was insistent that there are jobs that men can do that women cannot even attempt. And so for that reason,
as if going to the army it's a good thing.
How well does he give birth?
There are newsflash. There are women in the army.
Yeah,
exactly,
and
Michael.
That are very ruthless, eh? There are women that are so ruthless with those machine guns. But it's not even a good thing. I don't know. It's aggressiveness.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Whether you're religious, whether you're atheist, I think at some point you have to do a conscious what's the word I'm trying to find?
Check what has polluted your thinking.
Yes, an assessment. How you're thinking. Is this and that's why I appreciate the age of the internet, and you can see how things are done in other cultures. You can see, and that's why I have hope for the younger generation, because they get to see how it's done in other places. And then now you see, okay, if the people I look at on my social media, they getting all this nice and good, why am I different? Why do I get to, and I think as individuals, you need to reassess your thinking, reassess your biases and the things that we owe it to ourselves and to the ones that we love, to always check how we're thinking,
But first you must know that there are biases, and you must admit that me as Bulelang, there are heuristics that are working every time as I make decisions, and develop a method of catching them as they happen. Without that, you'll always think that these things happen to other people, not to you.
Right. That's so true. So this last point here is it also alludes to something that we discussed earlier, this idea of consent. So the paragraph is titled, "There is no difference between sexual abuse and sex before marriage," because that's the idea that floats in the religious context. But it says, purity culture doesn't talk about consent. It deals with right and wrong of pre- and post-marital sex. So sadly, this leaves many women and girls assuming that the pain and hurt they experience when men or boys sexually abuse them or discard them, after sexual encounters, is about having premarital sex. So then the author then relates a personal story where she says, at 17, when my boyfriend pressured, manipulated, and coerced me into sexual activity, I was convinced that this was the normal feeling of failing to honor God with my purity. When he then caused me physical pain, humiliated me, and degraded me, I thought that my responses were about my failures, not about his choice to abuse and exploit me. And this is where the the big red flag for me went on about this whole purity culture thing, because it's an unrealistic expectation, and then what happens is that our women and girls, they internalize that, like it says here, that pain and hurt that comes as a natural aspect of no relationship you will ever go into is going to be moonshine and sunshine and roses and love and everything. Every relationship will have challenges. It will be fraught with pain, disagreement, strife, but also on the converse, immensely fulfilling, endearing and intimate contact with another person. And it's so true what it says, that we internalize, not that it says that, but it's my opinion, is that we internalize these failures that we have as a natural course of relationships developing, and that we get that religious aspect where it says that you are at fault. I'm rambling here, so I'm not sure if I'm making the point clearly.
Yeah, it's the issue of guilt.
Yeah.
I don't think guilt is healthy.
Yeah.
When you assess a situation and you find that this was wrong, feeling guilty about it doesn't help you in any way. But seeing that this was wrong, the next time I'll do it this way, and being happy that you had a lesson.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to deal with things. But thinking that you are wrong and you are going to be taken to task when you die on this issue, and you've got to go and pray about it and pray and supplicate over and over, that one messes up with your mind. You might be depressed because of such thinking.
Exactly.
And also they promote shame, make you feel ashamed for the things that some things that they're completely beyond your control.
It's coercion.
Yeah, they're completely beyond your control. We make mistakes. We all would do things that we necessarily don't want to do, but then we do them. But it's how you feel afterwards, and how religion plays a huge role in how you feel when you've erred. This feeling that you've got to make some kind of supplications and prayers, and this deity is unhappy, and you're walking around feeling like you're not good enough and you're this horrible person.
Yeah, you are caught in that act in the past.
Yes.
And life has moved on and you are not aware.
Exactly. But this is the thing with guilt and shame. It forces you to relive the past. So instead of learning and growing from your experience, you are in the cycle of reliving the past. And
you're stuck.
You're stuck there,
But they also
useless. It's a useless emotion to feel.
Well, it isn't, because it's a tool of coercion. It gets you to comply with the people who have got the power, and the people who've got the power generally the men in this context, but that goes hand in hand with many of these issues in the religious and Christian sense, where you wrong somebody, your apology is not to that person and contrition. You go to the priest, and then you drop some money in the hat, and then the priest blesses you and says, you're fine now, your conscience is better, off you go. And your victim is still the one that's suffering. And that's not the way that things need to be done. It's got nothing to do when I wrong somebody. It's got nothing to do with anybody but me and that person, or me and that group. I go and I supplicate myself to them, and I make right to them. And there's, I don't need a third party. I don't need a broker to bless me and not help them.
And that's where the story of Jesus, for me, I felt like, the death of Jesus, what was the whole idea behind that? So now we need this third party. Now we need this the Son of God to come
Intercessor.
and die and be this matter, the one who bears your sins. I'm thinking, why can't God just easily just forgive you? He's got the power to. He can if he wants
No,
to.
Jesus
But
died
no.
because he was messing up with authority then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and now
It was not for the sins that I'm doing now.
well, a couple
It's
of
just
things.
an excuse.
You'd have to convince me that Jesus lived before you'd convince me Jesus died. But let's put that aside.
Yeah, but
I'm
but we are talking about the myth. That when you read the story properly, you can see that this person was offending people who were in power then, and eventually they killed him.
Yes.
Nowhere where it says Bulelang in 2020 is going to fornicate and now this guy must die.
But it goes much worse than that because he didn't die. They tell us he didn't die. He lived. He had a bad weekend, and then he lived.
Oh, true.
So they're confused.
Yeah, and it's quite a confusing story.
Yeah.
I still want to get an answer from a religious African. What has Jesus done for Africa and for Africans?
Yeah.
They will tell you that he's African. There's a movement that is claiming Jesus, and it's so boring for me. That argument.
Yeah.
Fictitious characters can be anything you want them to be.
Huh?
Fictitious characters can be anything you want them to be.
That's true.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't even want him to be African or to be Arab or Caucasian. I just want the story to be true, and the story is not cohesive, and people don't see it because they've been so immersed into it, and they think that it will make them feel good if they claim him.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's all very confusing. But it's just manacles of the mind. They're just locking people's minds away with this nonsense. Sorry about the
But that unlearning, it's very difficult. Esther earlier was talking about thinking about all the things that we have been taught and that we have come to live, and trying to find things where we are messed up. It's quite a project.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can happen if you don't have honest friends around you who would give you feedback that no, Bulelan, no, that thing, it's not on.
Yeah.
And the maturity to say, okay, yes, I see it.
Yeah. And that is why these atheist communities that are springing up like mushrooms everywhere, they're so important because it's a support network. You can bounce ideas off other people who are in the same frame of mind. I mean, if you were to come with these ideas 30 or 40 years ago, it would be heresy. It would be heresy.
Isolated.
People would be up in arms. How dare you have the nerve to speak about these sacred institutions and these sacred traditions of ours? But with this freedom of information and accessibility to information that we have now, I have a funny, it's just my opinion, but information is going to be the death of religion, if you ask me. Like when people get more information. Preach, brother, preach.
But the an interesting thing is that it's only information that people found themselves. If you go and tell people about something, you make them more stubborn.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've noticed that the best route to lose faith is to bump at the truth rather than somebody come and tell you about it.
Exactly.
Well, I think there's an important distinction as well. If you ask questions, that's the better thing. You just ask a question and you don't demand an answer. You plant the seed with a question and you leave.
Yeah.
They can ask themselves that then. Then they've got to make a decision to be honest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, this has been this has been such an interesting discussion. We can go for hours, I feel, but I think let's conclude it here. I just want to read this this closing paragraph of this article that I found, and get you guys' opinion. And then if you guys have got any channels or online things that you want to give a quick punt, you can do that as well. So
now, as long as you'll allow me one thing, I would like to close with prayer.
You can pray.
I'll
You can use your minutes as you please.
who are you? Which of the gods are you praying to?
I'll create one, don't worry.
Okay.
I'm very versatile.
The funniest thing I've ever seen was Christopher Hitchens, and he was talking to all these big religious group, and one of them turned to him and they said, "Mr. Hitchens, have you never prayed in your life?" And as fast as that, he said, "Yes." He said, "Once, for an erection." They cut them down pretty well.
Okay, this this article concludes where it and I actually appreciated reading this, because it was very candid. Usually articles written on Christian blogs and things like that, they are very one-sided, but this was extremely unbiased and very blunt and open in its approach. And it says in conclusion here that the irony is that purity culture is anything but pure. It is woven with oppression and lies. It is yet another weapon of the patriarchy to control and marginalize women, and that I believe that the church will continue to breed shame, sexual dysfunction, and pain until purity culture is rejected and replaced with a new ideology. An ideology that celebrates the bodies of women and men and delights in the beautiful gift of mutual and committed sexual intimacy and sexuality. And I cannot agree more.
But you are not fair. You should have just read. You should have just read that at the beginning, and the interview would be finished, because that's what we have been trying to say. Now we went for close to 1 hour 40 minutes now.
It's interesting, at least, I really love the diversity of opinion. We seem to be of one mind on one aspect, but it's always, I find it so fascinating in speaking to people that there's just this diversity of opinion, and I love that. I welcome that, and the thing, it's in such an opposition to religion, where diversity of opinion is not encouraged. There is this desire for everything to be homogeneous and in one single mold. Every single person needs to be pressed for the same cookie cutter from the same dough, and then religion is happy. Where this skeptic, the free thinking, the agnostic, the atheist community, we celebrate new ideas. And the believers should learn from their own story. Go look at the Dead Sea. Why is that sea dead? It's because there's only water flowing into it. There's no water flowing out of it. So there's only water flowing in, and it becomes salty, and nothing can live in it. So there has to be an exchange of ideas within our communities, and that's why I said I welcome diversity of opinion, diversity of ideas, and let's wrap it up here. Let's
just say one thing there.
Yes.
I think the issue is that religion teaches people what to think, and the antidote is teaching people how to think. And that's where diversity comes from. When you learn how to think, everything changes.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that one.
Yeah. Sorry, before we close out, I just wanted to tell everybody to keep watching out. We are going to diversify the programming on the Atheist Republic Cape Town YouTube channel. We are going to start doing programming in Afrikaans, which is a local language here, and we are also going to be doing an African language. So we are still ironing out the details and all of that. But starting New Year, we are going to have a diversity of different languages being spoken on this channel as well. We, after all, we've got 9 official languages in our country, so you know, we just thought that it would be suitable to you know, to give a platform to those communities as well. I mean, everybody can speak English in our country, but when you hear something in the tongue of your mother, you know, there's just a different, you connect to the message differently. I don't know if you guys
Yes,
agree with that.
in fact, those cultural issues that we are talking about, you can't argue successfully using English.
Yeah.
They will say all those ideas that you are talking of, they are based on the vocabulary of the language that you are using now.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's wrap it up there, guys. Let's just go around. Esther, do you want to tell us about your channel and where people can find you and what they need to search for?
So I'm on YouTube as the Afro Humanist. Started the channel after I deconverted from Christianity, and touching on subjects of religion and, you know, the toxic nature of religion, especially in Africa. I do live streams on there and do videos as well. So that's where you'll find me on YouTube as the Afro Humanist.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Amazing. Michael, anything out there? Anything going? Work in progress?
Actually, you know, some of this has made me reflect on something I did 7 years ago. I'm an author, and my very first novel called The Trojan Affair, and it was set here in the Northern Cape of South Africa, where a massive scientific project is being built, drawing in scientists from all over the world. And but it's a cauldron. It's a beautiful cauldron in which, sorry, my cat's sitting behind shaking my screen. It's a beautiful cauldron of everything we've discussed now, and cultures in collision and modernity colliding with tradition. And I managed to express in that story a lot of things that I wanted to write in a non-fiction book. And I realized it's very hard to reach the market I want to reach with a non-fiction book. They won't read it. So I write it into a story, and then they will read it. And I think my greatest accomplishments there on Amazon are where very religious people who read it, where I shook them, and with it in a very gentle, simple way. So it just made me revisit that story and made me realize I need to promote that story again one day.
What's the name of the book?
It's called A Trojan Affair.
A Trojan Affair.
I'll send you a copy.
And by Michael who?
Smorenberg. Smorenberg. It's a Swedish name, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But maybe Dean can load some links into the YouTube, for
you can message me a link to the to the page where your book is, and I can put it in the description.
Yeah, then you'll say somewhere down there in the YouTube or up there. With me, I haven't made any particular effort to separate different things that I'm passionate in my life. Right. I'm just Bulelan Rakepile. I've got a page called Bulelan Rakepile. I've got a profile also. But that's where I raise my points, if I've got any points. And but there's a time that I tried to separate and make a YouTube channel, but I find that it needs discipline.
Yeah. But let's wait for the new year, because it's going to be very exciting, like I said, to engage with you guys on creating local content for local atheists. So guys, thank you so much for your time, for your opinions. I really enjoyed this discussion. It was very stimulating, and I love the ideas. Keep them coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about the prayer?
I forgot. Okay, wait. Okay, so in closing, we are going to have Ntate Bolelang is going to lead us out in prayer.
I forgot the name of the god. Okay. Bye.
The god of purity culture.
No, please. No. No more purity.
Okay, guys. Take it
Okay.
easy.
When we were talking about purity, you reminded me of those little bottles. You remember for toddlers?
Yes,
yes.
Baby food,
Yeah. When I used to feed my toddlers, I would take a teaspoon or so and taste it. That's the purity that I like, especially the fruit ones. Bye.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take it
Bye,
easy. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.